Hello and welcome to Candle Wax Blue. Now this is a life skill book, a curriculum made to enhance the skill capacity for every student. And as always, the book is divided into 11 themes, each theme having a specific sub-theme. So let's get started on our first theme, that is the life skills, and the sub-skill here is critical thinking. Of course, internally, each activity will have even further skills, because you see, the idea is the student has to learn these skills over a period of a decade. It's a complementary curriculum that is meant for a student from grade 1 to grade 10 onwards. So we are now talking about the activity number 1, which is A1 and A2. It's called House of Commons. And a specific sub-skill even further that we are teaching them, as I'll be doing around with you, is of course we are talking to them in terms of what they want to learn in terms of critical thinking. In House of Common, the idea is there are a lot of toys given. The student have to draw a circle around a picture that seems odd. This essentially also combines a lot of element of self-awareness and critical thinking, because everybody's choice will be different. So there are no right and wrong answers. As in life, there are people with different choices. You might like pizza and somebody might like a plain vanilla rice. So look at the toys. You can start, instead of just telling them to find the odd one out, ask them what are their favorite toys. Do they resonate with the toys? Perhaps these kids have grown up, so you can ask them their favorite memory of a toy. And if you look at a toy, there is a pet dog, a Dalmatian. So you can ask them, is Dalmatian a pet or a toy? One of the areas of critical thinking we can talk about is what's the difference between a pet and a toy? And a pet needs a lot of care, a lot of affection. You can't throw a pet away. Do you throw your toys away? A pet needs timely food, care, going to a vet. Suddenly you are talking to them in a much deeper concept than just a little activity that you're doing. Then there are a lot of activities which involves car, or there is a basketball, there is a fire truck. So are these specific gender toys, or they could be a common toy? So you can ask them, are these referring to boys or girls? We are also breaking a lot of gender stereotype. Do you have to have a doll house as a girl toy or a Barbie as a girl toy, or can girls also play with Captain Avengers and Hulk? And this is very important to talk to a children in a language like this, because you have to understand that the pink and the blue is a passé. Today we are talking about yellows and greens. So we are saying that no, it does not have to be a specific gender toy. For example, basketball or a xylophone is a gender neutral toy. For that matter, even cars. So you can also ask them to draw a chart where they can list their top 10 toys. And then after they list the chart with the top 10 toys, you can make a class survey graph. So how many and what could the common toy be? So if tall, cars, the figures that you talk about like superheroes, if these are balls, could be one of the toy. Board game is a toy itself. And then suddenly a teddy bears or any stuffed animal is a toy. And the class can make a survey and a graph chart. You are learning about rules of analytical maths through a game which probably they would never do. Even before we started a first activity, we actually have done 3 activities sub ones. The difference is pet and a toy, number 1, boy and girl kind of stereotype toy, and the top 10 toy survey, and they are doing a class pie chart or a bar graph. Of course, the main activity is which one was the odd choice from here and why was it. We are also asking them to speak up in a line perhaps, because this may be a start of a new curriculum in a book. So they just tell why did they find it odd. It's not they did not like it, or maybe most of them would go for a Dalmatian because it's a living thing, others are not living thing. I am also looking for children who might give a different answer, and that would be a little more surprising. For example, that little baby toy doll, and this is no, this does not fit in because it's a very small baby's toy. Encourage whatever answers they give and appreciate the answer. My A2 is a very similar thing, only it has one of a kind of a toy. There are lots of stuffed bears. We ask them, are they able to recognize it? You can ask them how many stuffed toys they have. Actually, on a sub note, where did the word teddy bear come from? So this is a small survey a teacher does, and I would really recommend a teacher, in part of a resource, you can bring a teddy bear. The word teddy bear comes from an American president, Theodore Roosevelt. So Theodore Roosevelt was the president where once in that in a very previous time when the bear hunting was allowed and it was not illegal, somebody was hunting a bear and the then president Theodore Roosevelt actually prevented the killing of the bear, and from there he was known as the savior of this bear. And when they made the teddy bear, they coined the word Teddy from Theodore, which is his first name. A great way to look at a history and a different perspective. And I would really want a teacher to do this with a teddy bear in a hand. Of course, again, you do the odd choice. Why the choice is odd? There are a lot of, you see here, there are a lot of kind of, again, superhero, but still Tin Man kind of toys. So you can ask them a list of tin toys. You can even prepare a week earlier and ask them to bring their favorite toy. In your pre-primary, the only time we did show and tell, perhaps why did we only leave it to pre-primary? Every child can bring the best toy in your second period or further class, and they can actually do a show and tell also of this particular episode. This is my A1 and A2 of critical thinking skills that I'm imbibing in the child. My next activity in the theme 1 life skill is about a question that we're asking, what if? This is A3 and A4, and A3 specifically is a question that is directly lifted from Edward D. Bono's Six Thinking Hat kind of a question, where I read a book of Edward Thinking Hat where he said that what if the cars had square wheel instead of round one? Now it is very, very challenging question. This is a question that you may not even think about. A square wheel will be useless for a car. But he says the moment you apply your mind into it, it will change something about it. The fact that you're asking about a square wheel, the car may not run. Absolutely true. But what if a square wheel is used when there is ice? That is how the skis have come across. Or a square wheel might have greater advantage on a uphill mountainous region. So what is happening is the moment you put a question as such, the children are thinking. You can also go ahead and say that think of cars which have rollers. So this is not just a wheel, the road rollers we are talking about. Actually, if you look at the cranes, the big, what we call the caterpillars, the huge heavy lifting forklift cranes, you see they don't have wheels, they have a kind of a oval which is completely not circular in shape, but it is almost squarish in shape because there's a roller blade that keeps going on. So a lot of time we might not know where a particular thing is used. Again, another amazing aspect, and a teacher can go and pick up some pictures on internet and show it as a PowerPoint or on a slide or take a printout, are the Mars rovers. So if you have seen a Mars rover, and if you've seen this kind of spacecraft that we require, spacecraft don't require any wheels for that matter. And if the rounder the wheels are, perhaps it has more friction. So square approach might be helpful in a space rover or a spacecraft. It is just a critical thinking question, and this is how you talk about it. A side aspect to this would be you can ask them to draw a car with 4 side wheels. Perhaps a smarter teacher would not just draw, you can actually have a car and you can remove the wheel. So there is a toy car, you can remove the wheel and replace the wheel with a square tire and just push them and see what happens. Unless and until the children experiment and do on their own, they will not remember a question like that. Perhaps they will have fun around it. The second one, A4, is very similar. Another question, a critical thinking. What if we had schools in gardens instead of building? I'm sure this is more easier to understand, that children would love to think about a greenhouse and sitting in a garden and studying. They might come and say, what if it's rainy monsoon season? What if it's very hot and summer season? Perhaps they think of a covering, which is exactly what the picture denotes. But imagine sitting in the midst of bushes and flowers and plants, having your own organic garden. They might observe new things that you have missed out. It could be a butterfly garden. So these are questions we ask them. You can actually ask them to draw again a sketch, a plan of a school in a garden. So now what happens is they might not be exactly classrooms, but it could be under a banyan tree, under an oak tree. Classes could be just, the way gurukuls were, way pathshalas were. Perhaps children would love to do. And if you are a school and doing it, you might want to experiment and say, all right, this particular activity, we might actually do it in a school garden or a lawn or a sports ground with a little shade, of course, around. So this brings to a third activity on the scale of my life skill, A5 and A6. Believe me, this is my personal favorite as an activity, because what we are trying to do in this is called people perspectives. You see, interpersonal communication about knowing who the people are. You have to understand the people, you have to look at them and observe. Today we are divided into ethnicity, religion, demographics, gender, that somehow we don't even recognize how people are. The entire humankind, how wonderful it would be if we would go and appreciate the diversity we have. This activity is about appreciating a diversity. What we have done is started two ordinary people crossing a road. Both of them perhaps have their cafe lattes in their hand, and then they are conversing. And you can talk, what are they conversing about? So even before you got to the people, you say they might be talking about work, they might be school teachers, they might be employees working in Google, they are crossing a road, so they might have it, what time of the day it is. It could be a lunch break, because they have coffees, it might possibly be a morning or a evening tea time. Look at the sun, it looks a little bright that way, so it could be a 12 o'clock or 11 o'clock morning fresh break. Or it could be early morning, they're going to office. What are they looking at? Are they smiling? That means they're enjoying the work. And you can ask them, do you enjoy coming to school? Or, suddenly you are actually learning about it. Remember the coffee idea? The entire idea for what we do in Candle and with Sky Education, we call ourselves the cloud as the third space. A space between home and school where children can identify with you as educators. That's what Starbucks is about, isn't it? It's a third space between home and office. Your children will tell you things that they won't tell to their parent. Some things like bullying, or maybe abuse, or maybe things that they feel depressed about. Fair enough, this is just a conversation that we started with, but the real concept is about knowing these 5 or 6 things that I would like to know. Which country are they from? And most likely, stereotypically, how we are biased, they would always identify the black gentleman as someone from Africa and the white one from America. Very wrong. Both of these people are either American or European citizen, and because you look at the country, you look at the freshness, they might as well be anywhere in Africa and both are African citizen. But looking at the ethnicity, most likely they're American citizen, and that's what you have to stress upon. Wealth. Who do you think is rich and who do you is poor? We can never tell. So you tell them wealth is very, very subjective, very, very relative. They both have equal measure of the cups. They're smiling. We are no judge of people's wealth. Culture. Yes, because they are same country citizen, they are identifying with same culture. Education, well, hopefully both of them look at office going people, so they're educated, but what kind of education they have? They may be engineers. Of course, they do not look like lawyers because lawyers have an attire. They could be, might as well be school teachers. They might be working in a Walmart, on a supermarket department. So you allow them to give them a lot of options. Lifestyle, they have a pretty decent lifestyle, a great lifestyle. They may have families back home. They may be enjoying a solo trip around the vacation time. And then we look at food habits. Oh, well, they don't look very fat, though they have a very healthy food habit. They might be exercising or gymming or cycling and walking. So suddenly what you're doing is you have created an entire chart around simple conversation only with 2 pictures. A teacher may not want to just to use these 2 pictures. You can actually extend it to many pictures around. But if you look at A6, we have taken a little deeper. Now, these are 2 real world leaders from a summit that they're meeting each other. They are representing country, the flags are behind them, and the idea is the student now look at the country of origin. Unlike the first picture, they are from different countries and they are representing their countries. Why are they wearing the same type of clothes? Very interesting question. If they are from different countries, today the universal business suit is a tie and a coat, and this is very nice. So you see, today English has become a business language. Do they have to do conference? Does it, where they are doing conference, what they might be talking? It might be bilateral ties between the two countries. They might be talking. Look at the gesture about the Chinese man, touching him. So how much is that body movement? They are talking to one another. They look very clear. They are very close to one another. And this is an entire format we would like you to talk about. Well, you can take this whole idea about each child and you can say, look at yourself and your attire and your dresses, and could you identify your background, perhaps your early schooling or your natives, and a little more that they know about themselves would be a wonderful way to do this critical thinking life skill activity. We are doing Candle Blue and our next theme is Newsmaker. And among the newsmaker, we have taken arts. So you will see Leonardo da Vinci, you will talk about Walt Disney and the artists that we have. In the student manual, we've got 3 activities. And the first activity is, of course, because we're doing Leonardo da Vinci, we are talking about Mona Lisa. And it's a big enigma, a dilemma among artists, that is Mona Lisa smiling or not? Of course, so we take it as a case study. And it is all about interpersonal communication. So here is a young girl, a lady perhaps, Messi, who goes to the beautiful Louvre, the museum in Paris, where the painting of Mona Lisa is kept. Now, what we are doing is we are asking them to understand art when they have never understood. While we'll be talking a lot about Mona Lisa and the artist in her, and the activity is from B1, we also want them to know what makes a painting special. So what is so special about Mona Lisa? Who is the artist? Where is the painting displayed? What colors have been used? Let them look at the painting and appreciate it. Honestly, I would also want them to look at some more paintings. And if you are an art lover yourself, you might come across a very common name about M.F. Hussain from India or some other artists around the world. What makes people pay millions of dollars to buy, and the auctions of the painting are huge. Maybe there is a hidden painter among your class and you had not identified it. I would really recommend one parallel activity, and I always done. So this is, when we do an activity, it might look like 1-2 pages only, but there's so much to do that you will really struggle to have at least 2 hours to do it. We want them to bring their paint brushes. Now, because it is fun to have an easel, a palette. You start learning at the things that what a painter will need. So there are paint brushes, there is an easel, there is a palette where you mix the colors, and what are the 3 primary colors, the R, B, G, what is Y, what is cyan, CYAN, and we are asking them to do a color mixing activity here. Besides, you can also bring some of the most popular paintings around the world. For example, there is one called the Last Supper. Yes, it's such a vivid painting about Jesus Christ and his disciples as the Last Supper. It's a very, very thought-provoking painting. Maybe you can read a bit about this painting. Why is this painting so thought-provoking? There was a time called the Renaissance time where these paintings and citadels were very, very popular. Even in India, there are artists whose paintings are very popular worldwide. As I said, your research should take you to find these artists, bring out 10 paintings, take a color printout, put it in your wall and make it like an art gallery walk. Like if you're in Bombay, it would be the Kala Ghoda where you go, and honestly, the children will not even be able to understand. For example, most of us don't understand how an opera works or a Bharatnatyam works unless and until we are able to see the nuances of the effort or the art form. So you can do an art gallery walk and you can say, why did you find it boring or why did you find it interesting? Perhaps it's like the same thing. Some of us won't like football match if you don't know the rules of the game, or if you are not excited or don't understand Real Madrid from Barca or Messi from Ronaldo, Juventus. Art is something very, very subjective. Not everybody likes art, but you should take an interest, and perhaps one day you might want, if not paint one, you might actually auction or buy a painting. And by the way, paintings are also great treasure. Great people buy paintings and they resell it and auction it at very higher prices. So we've just given 2 sub-themes before you go to Mona Lisa. Then Rumi wants to know if she looks like Mona Lisa. There is another girl here. If she has to dress up like a Mona Lisa, how should she make up? Actually, if you look at a Mona Lisa, she has very minimum makeup. and that's what makes it special. So you talk about, perhaps you do a small search on who Mona Lisa is. This name Mona Lisa, where does it come? It is a French sounding name. It is perhaps from where the artist has come from. And what do you think the meaning of Mona Lisa is? Fair enough. So once you do that, there is another sub point, a side point called Leaning Tower of Pisa. Very similar Italian signs. So you can talk about Italy and you can talk about the Renaissance and things like that. It has not ended. My B2, my activity B2 actually has 3 students who decide to paint Mona Lisa. Now this is wonderful. I would be really happy if you can do this activity in the class where you tell them, look at the painting and maybe bring an H1B pencil. So you can do the shades of the pencil, just a pencil shading. And with the pencil shade, you paint or sketch Mona Lisa. And I know it is so much of fun thinking about it. The children will really do a cartoonish Mona Lisa, and that's exactly what we've done. So you see that 3 Mona Lisa paintings here, and one of them is absolutely obese Mona Lisa. One of has a frown instead of a smile, and one of them looks more like a country girl from Welsh or Irish country girl than a real Italian Mona Lisa. But why should we be original? If you had to create a lady's face, whose face would you create? Someone may say their mother, someone say Mother Teresa, someone may say an actress, someone say Captain Marvel. Irrespective, you can make a list of famous people, women who they would like to sketch. And this is a nice way to talk to them and look at how the new female power and who is Margaret Thatcher or Florence Nightingale, and they can learn about so much about just understanding the women from the time of old to new recent women who have made us proud, from Hillary Clinton to Malala Yousafzai. So this is the newsmaker aspect of B1 and B2. And my entire idea of doing this recording and sharing this online voice lesson plan, besides the notes that you will be receiving, is that you also get a lot of traction, a lot of ideas, and you understand as the authors of the book what we have in mind when we have created the entire thing. The next one, B3, is more mundane, it's more lighter than compared to the first one. B3 and B4 again is art, but you see we have taken a take on Walt Disney, one of the greatest artists or imaginators of our time, who created an entire series and cartoons. So a sub-theme of this my favorite cartoon in terms of what we are doing with regards to the newsmaker is creativity. So you look, cartoons are all about creative imagination. We have got around 15 cartoon pictures here, and we would like the students to identify. Perhaps they are living in different genre. They may not even know who Bart Simpson is, or who Garfield is, or Superman is a passé, so is Spider-Man, who's still relatively popular. But today Batmans are all over. It is about the DC comics, the Wonder Woman and Shazam. And Aquaman. So let's see if they can still identify Winnie the Poohs and things around it. Still, what you can do is you can ask them, or you can go online and take a fresher picture with the current Doraemons and Shin-Chans and see if they can identify. Or you can ask them to tell you. Perhaps in this activity you can actually allow them to go online and they find their favorite cartoon character. The point is, what message are the cartoons conveying to them? What is it they think they like the cartoon for? And so many things can be spoken only on the idea of a cartoon character. Having said that, let's go to B4, where we actually take it into a sub-theme and a little more detailed one, where we ask them to identify one of their favorite cartoon character. Now, after they've identified, we say, now don't draw this cartoon character, but develop your own one. An imaginary character. So this is a complete exercise that we're asking them, that what do you think is your cartoon character about? Is it an animal, a bird, or a human being? If it's a human, is it a strong character or a weak character? Is it a male or a female? Does it have some resemblance to someone you know? Or what colors do you like the character to have? Where does the character live? In a city, in an urban location, in a rural setting, in a jungle? And you can ask questions and they start answering them. After you have a data, you're actually making a Stan Lee. You know who Stan Lee is? The creator of the Marvel comics. So he's the one who's created all the superheroes that you see around. So now what you're telling them is, look, This is how a imaginary character is developed, or how artistic Pixar develops movies. So, you can look at it, and perhaps irrespective of how they draw, I would like the creative energies to come out, and this is what we are trying to do in arts thing. Perhaps you can allow them to name it. For example, I'll give you a small idea, and this is my sub activity. How is Shazam named? Now, of course, I love the imaginary world of these characters that have come up. The Shazam has come, the DC extended universe. So it's called DCEU. DC Comics have their own. Marvel universe is different. I don't know. You are only living in Milky Way. Our children are living in different universes. Now, Shazam is a new character from DC. If you could, all you do is look at a newspaper. They will almost every week there is one superhero movie being released. So you can cut out a picture and you can come and talk about that superhero, because right now as I'm talking, Shazam is very popular. Maybe when you are doing it 6 months later or a year later, some other time, a new character may have emerged. Look about it, but I like to talk about Shazam because the character has SHAZAM. There are 6 letters in it, and each of them represent one superhero. It is a regenesis of this particular superhero or ancient mythical feature that Shazam has. For example, S is Solomon. So Shazam has the wisdom of Solomon. And I think you can do this exercise with your kids. Then H stands for Hercules. So it is the strength of Hercules. A is for Achilles. Achilles, the courage of Achilles. Z stands for Zeus. So you have the power of Zeus, which is one of the early Greek gods that you look at, and another A stands for Atlas. So you have the stamina of Atlas. Actually the A's are reversed, and M stands for Mercury and the speed of Mercury. Oh well, you can actually make them an entire chart around it. I love this because they're learning a lot more about mythologies and ancient people and history, and this is interesting. Just from a newsmaker you could have done a Shazam. Fair enough. My third activity in newsmaker arts, B5 and B6, is a lot about self-expression, and that's what we're talking about. Art at the end of the day is about expression. So what we are doing is we are doing an EQ here, coping with emotion. So you look at the picture the children have, and you are actually developing emotional intelligence in a child. Can they identify an emotion that is being displayed? For example, the first girl that you have on the extreme top left hand corner, what emotion does she have? So even before you do this, because children will not know the emotion itself, so you can actually, if you turn the page, you have all the emotions written there. So I try not to get the children turn their pages, but she is a happy girl. So before you start, you could actually make them write an emotion chart. And how do I write an emotion chart? It's very difficult to get an emotion chart randomly. I'll give a small exercise to understand. Right now, as you're listening to this, pause for a minute and think of all the white things in the world. Go ahead. Give yourself a 30 seconds break and you play it. I'll continue talking, of course. You pause me now. Think of all the white things in the world. If you've restarted it, now it would have been a little more difficult to think of white things. Believe me, you would have got 5, 6, maybe 2 also, and it doesn't matter. Now, think of your refrigerator, alright? And again give yourself a 30 seconds break and think of all the white things inside the fridge. So pause it and think of the white thing inside the fridge. And if you have understood the concept, it's easier to concentrate when it is very, very specific. So in the fridge there is egg, there is milk, there is bread, there is curd, there is rice, there is ice. Perhaps you have vanilla ice cream. And what has happened is it was easier to look inside the fridge than look at the world. The same way, it's a great small sub exercise. The entire idea of it is, instead of saying emotions, tell them, okay, talk about 5 emotions that are displeasing, 5 emotions that are pleasing. So what is happening is, pleasing could be happy, joyful, things like hopeful. Displeasing could be guilty, sad, jealous, angry. So what is happening is, it's easier for them to look at the emotion in this way. Now, of course, this is a fun activity. It will take a lot of time when they discuss an activity. If they have not seen behind, it's even fun. And allow them to ride the emotion irrespective. Perhaps a child may look, shy to me, but actually she could be hopeful. A child may look disinterested to me, but she may be internally excited about it. So you tell them, sometimes emotion may not be a true reflection of your inner state. After what you have done, another sub activity that I would like to do is you allow them to write emotion in a chit. Alright, so all the emotions they found out, so we've got actually 16 emotions that you got down. Write those 16 emotions in a chit. And then we play 2 games around it. Game 1 is they go and pick up a chit. Yes. And when they pick up a chit, they know what the emotion is, and they will make that kind of emotional face. Let's say a difficult one would be proud, and they will be boasting perhaps, and others have to guess what emotion are they displaying. You can make this class into 2 teams, and it's more fun as a competitiveness. And then the ones who guess it first, or it's like a dumb shots also, you guess it and you get your points. So that's your emotion. Game 1, guess the emotion. Game 2 is what you do is you allow only 2 emotions to come up, or 3. Let's say you have a class of 12. So what you do is you only pick up 3 emotions. It could be guilty, it could be bored, and it could be surprise. Now, of course, I'm just randomly giving the emotion, and you only pick 12 children. So there are 4 guilty cards, 4 bored cards, and 4 surprise cards. Each child picks up one card, and they have to find out, just without making any sound, who the other 3 people in the team are. The one that gets it all correct and first is a winner. You can do a multiple round with it, and believe me, you will have emotion filled class. Even the introverts and the shies will be hopefully part of it. I believe this is one of the best activity in an environment where you can create emotional intelligence development and recognition of facial features in a child. So hopefully you enjoy your newsmakers. Until then, goodbye and good luck. Hello and welcome to a Candle Blue. Today we are taking the 3rd section, which is the C section, called environment. And when we talk about environment, it is such a dry subject, be it in social studies, be it a part of geography. Students almost run away from it. And perhaps that's the declining state of our affairs with regards to our, a relationship with our earth. So we've taken a different take on environment, and for one, we've started talking about a character, a very popular character, Mowgli, from Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book. So let's first make a profile of who Mowgli is. And as I always do, I will share inside activities, things that are beyond the book, because that's what a teacher needs. How much time can you spend on what you do? So who is Mowgli to begin with? Well, in relation to the environment, he's a true friend, because number 1, he stays without electricity, which is his consumption of electricity is so low, his carbon footprint is almost negligible. 2, there is no pollution from him. So Mowgli is not using radiation, Mowgli is not using cars, Mowgli is not burning fossil fuels. This is what Mowgli is. So I have to identify 3 more aspects of life of Mowgli that's different from you. Obviously, the first thing they would come up and say that, you see his clothes, he doesn't wear them. And the best part is he doesn't go to schools, or his teachers are Bagheera and Bhalu, and his enemy is Sher Khan. So, a lot can go into just who Mowgli is. Now, the more important part that I want you to do in the first of C1 is, can you make a CV, the curriculum vitae or resume of Mowgli? Now that's where the students will enjoy doing it. So I want students to actually make a proper CV of Mowgli, and maybe, after you make a CV, you can do a pretend mock interview. So the Mowgli goes for an interview, and how does he survive? There is actually a lovely movie called Captain America. Of course, do not go to the Avengers part of it. This is about a father who's raising his children in complete wilderness, in between the nature. And it is assumed that because they were homeschooled or unschooled, I would rather like to use the word, they would not be able to, get into the best school. But these kids are reading Noam Chomsky, they're reading, Homer, they're reading Socrates. And the father has a music session in the night, he has a evening reading class, there is a nature trek, they are fighting martial arts, and they're growing up in this environment, they're eating herbs, and after, it's a sad movie, a long movie, but what happens is the students, his own children, get the best scholarship, not only from one but every college they've applied to. So what we want to convey to the students, to the children is, just the concrete environment, the urban landscapes don't make you smart. It's your connection with nature that makes you smart. It's your reading abilities. It's your time you spend away from your gadgets that is important. So our first exercise is you talk about Mowgli in general. Then you make a CV of a Mowgli. And to begin with, I can share my CV, of course not very impressive, but you can go ahead and, the idea was how you make a CV interesting. You can make a 3-page CV. The CV should have a picture of a person who's presenting. The CV should show about your likes, your dislikes. You can even go and say your favorite cartoon characters or your TV shows. You can talk about your favorite books, the places you have visited, the kind of apprenticed jobs you have done, the courses you have done, the certificates you have won. You can talk a bit about, YouTube, a channel you started with, or anything that interests the listener, the interviewer. So you can look at a mock CV. Of course, I can share enough of those with you and make on those lines what a Mowgli CV will look like. It's always easier to make someone else's CV instead we asking them to do, which is at a higher level. I do ask them in career, but right now it's Mowgli's CV. Then we will pretend a mock interview where the teacher along with some students will actually do the interview of Mowgli. So some of the students will now be a Mowgli. Of course, you don't have to just wear a small lion cloth. You can wear proper cloth for that matter. So that's my C1. The activity isn't over. In C2, I've taken a very, very beautiful lines, the poem from the same 1894 Jungle Book about who Mowgli is. So Mowgli means man cub. So they don't know what a child is. So they thought he's a cub, and the wolves have raised him. So run the kite brings home the night, that man the bat sets free. The herds are shut in byre and hut, for loose until down are we. This is the hour of pride and power, talon and tush and claw. Oh, hear the call, good hunting all, that keeps the jungle law. Now it's a beautiful poem which talks about upholding the ethics of the jungle, and this is what we are trying to convey. In one word, if you were to tell what is the moral of the poem, here is that there are laws in the jungle and even they follow social norms. So that could be the moral of it. Of course, with the poem, you read the poem, you enjoy it, you make students do, maybe I said dawn incorrectly, maybe you focus on the pronunciation. And then we have some questions. You can add 10 more to it, but simple questions are the name of the two creatures being mentioned, the kite and the bat, and what are they being referred as. The talon means, the claw, the talon. It's talking about the bird of prey. And what time of the day could it be when the herds are shut in the byre? And so we are looking at, night coming in. Jungle really becomes alive in the night. The call of the jungle. What's the call of the jungle? So hunting, everyone hunts, but you see the beauty of hunting is nobody overhunts. There is no greed and gluttony in jungle. Like the 7 sins we're talking about. You can talk about those 7 sins, and my side activity one would be name the 7 sins that students would like to talk about. Lust, pride, greed, wrath. And if I can get all the 7 right. And there's a beautiful exercise which says today's gadgets are these. So example, lust is Tinder. I don't want children to know about it, but at least you can say greed is Facebook, or pride is Instagram, or wrath is Twitter, where people troll each other. If you think that students are mature enough, you can do social media with them. But what about the jungle coexistence? Even a lion and an antelope will be together, and he will not hunt if he has his stomach full. So it's a beautiful exercise you can do, the 7 sins, and then the jungle rule. What the Jungle Book is the name of the Kipling's book, but if you had to rename it, what would you rename it? And of course the video watch. I'm sure the students have watched the video Jungle Book, the new one, but if you watch it together, there is nothing better than it. It's a beautiful 3D animated, so alive, characters are so real, the Sher Khan, and there's one thing they're afraid of is the fire. So you can talk about this whole phobia of fire. Why do animals are afraid of fire? What's the edge that humans have? One of our edge is the ability to imagine and talk, communicate. So we talk to one another in different races. An elephant and a lion, or antelope and a zebra, they don't communicate. They only talk to one another. But humans, Chinese, with Australians, with Americans and Brazilians, we talk to one another. But then another one is the invention or rather discovery of fire, because fire is always there. But what is the phobia of fire? Pyrophobia is what the phobia of fire is, as acrophobia is the fear of heights. And you can talk about this phobia and fire. How did the humans first come with a spark, and the entire concept came in. I think we've given a lot of things for you to do in C1 and C2. Hope environment will not be the same again after this exercise. So let's take an easier take on C3 and C4. With C3, we are doing a little model making. I think you can use some clay if you can, and we can make an earth ice cream. Or perhaps, I don't know, if you have an ice cream shop nearby, you let the ice cream melt, or you make a, I've seen one teacher do that. They've taken what you call edible decoratives, the glitter that you can eat, and they decorated an entire ice cream like the earth, and they let it melt. And they have done, a kind of a videography onto it. I would be amazed if you do it. But if earth was an ice cream, what flavor would it be? I can see the blue there. So you can, I don't know what, raspberry perhaps, or blueberry, or it's just plain vanilla, or it's blue chocolate. You can talk of world around it. It's just a conversation, but I would like you to make a model here, and that will take a lot of time. So conversation will be less, or you can take an ice cream, a vanilla ice cream, and then do the coloring dye onto it. Then we take a little further. We say, all right, fine. Now, since you made the ice cream, the earth ice cream, if you had to use any two toppings onto it, what toppings would it be? So you just start with syrups and nuts and sprinkles, or you take to Cold and Stone, or any of the ice cream flavored shop, Hammer or Baskin Robbins, or even Amul Dairy would be fine. But then they talk about a lot of dairies and talk about what are the ice cream talking about. A small side activity, as I always tell you, is you can actually discuss about what is a frozen dessert. You see, a lot of ice creams today are not milk-based product. So some of them write ice cream, but most of them write, since they are not milk-based product, they write frozen dessert. It's a great case study to talk about. You can ask students to bring in some ice cream wrappers. So as always, you hear the talk and you say, listen, I have a great activity in ice cream. Why don't you all go home as exercise, eat an ice cream, and on the day of this, I want you to bring a wrapper. It could be a cone wrapper, it could be a stick wrapper, it could be just, the cup, but I want them to bring some ice cream wrappers there. Oh, wow, I would love an exercise like that. Then, since you've chosen two toppings, I'm asking you, what are the two toppings on the earth ice cream you like to have? And this opens up the entire Pandora box of discussion. Number one is the ozone layer. Why is it depleting? What gas are used to deplete the ozone layer? It's huge. There's a hole in the ozone. The gases you use in a refrigerator is one gas responsible for the hole in the ozone. What happens when there is a hole in the ozone? It is a complete effect on what we call the greenhouse gases. The earth needs to have these gases because the ozone protects us. When they escape, then the earth gets warmer. When the earth gets warmer, the global warming happens, and then the ice starts melting. The ice melts, the coastal seas rise. It may give rise to flooding in the sea area. So huge. So you would like how to have a greenhouse gas protection. But perhaps you just need more forest, because if there's no forest, if there's deforestation, then there is no carbon dioxide, there is no oxygen release. And you see today in China, because of the pollution, because the forest absorb your polluted air, you get cans for oxygen cans. Really strange enough, isn't it? Or else active volcanoes. Do volcanoes are useful? Perhaps the volcanoes are like, the mountains are like pegs. So more volcanoes, more tectonic movement, more earthquakes coming in. Or perhaps your topping is just less traffic. As I spoke about carbon footprint, pollution, fossil fuels. You would like to make more greener cars, like the Tesla's electric car or the solar car. Or perhaps you don't want humans on the earth. So you are like Thanos, who want to wipe out the humanity and bring a race which is better. Or you talk about Avatar as a community. There's so much of conversation, and each of these, and I spoke of solar energy. We had a chapter in Violet on solar. So you put panels there. You can use all of these as your conversation. How can I make it interesting? Is it just conversation? Perhaps I can make students get a chart. So this is an activity. We did a clay model of Earth. So in C4, we asked them to make a chart, and in the chart, you use only these 7 toppings I have given you. You can add 2 more, 3 more if you want to, and let them make them into boxes, and each of them can be represented in some way. It will be nice. Or you make smaller chart papers, the A4 or the A3 ones, and make classes into small groups, and every 2 or 3 students get one, and then they see an internet, they see a picture, and they design or draw one. Oh, this is such a more involved activity in protecting the environment than just discussing and saying our environment needs you. We actually show them how the environment can need you. So that brings an end to C3 and C4. We go to the last exercise, C5 and C6, which is what we call the dark earth. So now we say that, let's say all that you did not help. No, all that you have put an effort to, you still had an ozone gas leak, you still had deforestation, you still had no alternate fuel, and the earth has been depleted now. So now the earth would be dark, as in the earth is becoming less and less habitable. The earth is becoming like, say, Mars or Jupiter. Is becoming colder or hotter. Rather, it's actually becoming very cold, so humans can't live. It's being flooded. So now what you do is a very simple exercise right now. First one, in C6, we have given you a picture of a globe. What we'd like to do is take a dark pencil. It could be a black crayon, it could be the darkest pencil shade you can get, and make the earth as dark as you can. Believe me, instead of making it beautiful, we're saying let's make earth ugly, because if you don't spend time, this is what earth will look like. So what we are suggesting is earth needs you as much as you need the earth. So why don't we do it? It's a great exercise. Then you discuss what was the emotion that they came across when they were coloring the earth dark. So, you know, my first side activity is let them come up and say the emotions could range from, write the emotions on board. If they can't think of emotion, give them 10 emotions. Say, okay, what were the emotions that you could think of? I would give you 10 emotions to begin with. Simple adjectives: pity, empathy. It could be anger. It could be fear, right? It could be sorrow. It could be hurt. So I can go on, but I'm just giving you these 7 now. So I said, are you feeling sorry for the earth? You feel pity for the people on the earth. You feel empathy that I'm not able to do anything. But or you're very angry, or you're afraid, or you feel very disappointed, hurt. You could be embarrassed because I'm responsible for it. And then they choose these emotions, and they actually spend 2 minutes explaining why these emotions are powerful in saving the earth. So this would be my last exercise on environment. I hope we become friends and true global citizens of our planet, because we just have one, and let's save it together.